NFC representative, Philadelphia Eagles. Bob, almost all of this team is equal to or better than how they were last year, and they were in the Super Bowl. And quite frankly, they were one schematic decision away from winning that Super Bowl. You don't play the entire season playing press coverage, but the first time you play a real quarterback, run away the entire game and let him pick you apart underneath.
Mm-hmm.
They would have treated Dak the same way they treated Mahomes. They would be having a parade.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, it still was a penalty at the end of that game. So when I look at this, I like where the Eagles are at in every single way, except for two glaring problems to go back to the Super Bowl. That letting their tackle go, I believe, is a major concern. You know, we're in a league now where left and right tackle don't matter as much as they used to, mostly because the pass rushers are able to go from both sides of the line of scrimmage. This isn't the Michael Strahan years of old. This is best guy can go anywhere he wants on the field and make it happen. So that's why I say we had an offensive line last year that at worst was A minuses across the board. Some of them were A pluses.
Mm-hmm.
And now we just threw a giant question mark, who in all probability is a C, on that front.
Okay.
Skill-wise, off the charts talented. You know, Swift is an upgrade. You know, Smith and Brown are just getting better. Hurts getting better. This team is on the increase and the rise. And defensively, they built their team correctly. They built it from the inside out, and they built it incredibly well. I love the two Georgia boys in the middle. So I look at this team. They are built that if you ever do somehow get a lead on their offense, you're not running the ball out on them. And with how good they were at causing turnovers last year, especially Slay, they're never out of games. They basically built a recession-proof defense by being able to stop the run. And with their offense having the ability to hit it over the top and run the ball so well, I don't see this is where we disagree. I think these guys are still better than the Cowboys. You just said they don't. I think this team's going to the Super Bowl. I love the Eagles, but I have to point out my fear and why I'm not blowing the whole wad on them. That line was amazing. And I saw whenever the tackle went out last year how that team imploded. And there was a couple of instances that happened. And it's part of why in the second half against Dallas at home, they did not look like the same team. The Dallas getting pressure from Parsons actually showed up. Didn't happen at all when he was in the game. Now Parsons is here. And, you know, obviously that's a major concern. Great update for the Titans. Not exactly what I'm talking about here for the Cowboys. But we look at their other big one that left, their guard. They already had it planned out. Now they got a second-round pick who's going to be showing up there and taking over. So I do trust their coaching staff. I trust their GM. I think it's one of the best in the league. It could just be this question mark they believe is a B+, and because I don't know about him, aside from he's a seventh-round pick, I think he's going to be a C to C-. But that being said, they probably do deserve the benefit of the doubt. They have built a great team, and of your starting 22, that's a big one you don't have as a mistake.
Yeah.
But it's only one. So
here's
where we complain.
The reason why I think Dallas is going to take this division, it's not because I don't think that the Eagles are capable of winning the Super Bowl again. I think this division, and unfortunately when we spoke about the Giants are the odd team out in this division because Dallas and Philly are just so strong. And I think that New York is just one or two steps behind where these teams are at right now, maybe even 3 steps behind.
Defensively, for sure.
The Dallas has been building this team up for years. Philadelphia similarly has building this team up for years. Sirianni is a really great coach for this team. You know, his players react to him. They went out, they lost their defensive coordinator, they picked up another one. They hired and promoted. They lost Shane in the offseason. They promoted from within. So there's a lot of continuity on this team. Now, they went all in on defense this year, and they went in on all defense with some what other media has said to be known character issue players. And so you could have spent that on other players to help out other parts of your team. You did go out and you did get Rashad Penny to replace Miles Sanders. I like Rashad Penny. Again, health issue has been in the past for him. You didn't really go out to improve your pass catchers very much, so it's pretty much the similar room.
You don't need to.
You
Devontae Smith's amazing, man.
I'm saying this with cooled expectations, is that you have now spent a year in this system and you've learned through all of these things. Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback. He's bordering on that elite legendary style after the way he played last year. Let's see if he can do it again. Now, with this team, there's really no bad thing that you could say about this team to a degree. You said the offensive line, yes, there's some issues there.
Oh, just the one tackle.
Well, yeah, but that's an issue. And it's an issue that a team like the Dallas Cowboys, who are their main opponent in this division, can expose. If you go and you look at what Philadelphia's schedule looks like, and I'm just going to pull it up here real quick.
Well, again, they're playing the AFC East. They're playing the NFC West. When we look at the NFC West, with the exception of the Niners, do you think anyone could give them a game?
Do I? No. I think that if we're looking at this schedule, there could be some surprises. But this team, other than Dallas, so they play Kansas City, right? That could be a loss. They play Dallas twice. They play New York just like Dallas does. They play Seattle, and I think Seattle's style of play could be something that, depending on how they develop as the year goes on, I think that could end up being a loss for both Dallas and for Philadelphia. But when we look at when they play San Francisco, they play them week 13. If that sets up wrong and they lose that game in week 13, well, then they play Dallas next. And Dallas could feed off that. Then they play Seattle. I'm not saying that if we're going to nitpick about some things that could potentially go wrong for the Eagles this year, I think the way that their schedule is set up could lead them to failure, because not failure to the degree that they're going to miss the playoffs. They're still going to make the playoffs. I think they're still a Super Bowl contender. Don't get that twisted. But
they're starting 4-0, Bob.
They're starting 5-0.
Yeah, they are.
For that trip to New York. And they could potentially be 6-0. But I'm not saying that that's where the problem comes in. I'm saying week 11. You have week 9.
Yeah, they have a murderer's row at 11, 12, and 13 of
week
Kansas
11,
City.
Week 12, week 13, week 14. These are all games that Philadelphia could potentially lose. And if they lose one, you have to ask yourself,
well, the back-to-back
didn't experience much loss last year.
No, the Hurts did not lose during regular season. That's true.
So
but
we haven't.
To go through it, it's at Kansas City on Monday night, then Buffalo at home, and then Niners at home, and then at Dallas on Sunday night.
Right. And why I'm bringing that up is not because I think they're going to lose all those games, but this is a potential pitfall where we haven't seen them experiencing these losses as a team in this nature yet. If they accumulate one, let's see how they bounce back before we say they're going to win the division, because I think playing Kansas City when they play them, they're going to play well. There's no questions asked that that's going to happen. But I think it needs to be considered. And it's the only pitfall about this team, because this team is great. It came off of a Super Bowl run. They almost won the Super Bowl. They're built to last. And so the only thing is that mentality is, can Sirianni continue to coach them into this winning franchise, this winning organization consistently throughout the year? We saw it last year, but their schedule wasn't as hard last year.
That's true.
As it is this year. Same could be said about Dallas. Their schedule is a little bit harder this year. So we got to see what happens and how they decide to show improvement, because the status quo is perfectly fine for Philadelphia if the status quo means I'm going back to the Super Bowl. But if they've improved at all, then you can write everything I said about Dallas out the window, and you can just peg them as the Super Bowl, Super Bowl contenders by far and away.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I feel about them. I mean, you get that defensive front that they have, and you still have a Seen Reddick coming off the edge. Like, this defense is scary.
Yeah, Joe, I
love this team.
I am not saying
I know you're not hating on them. I just can't stop loving them. This is how a team should be built.
Is what we've been talking about. This defense is the defense that causes quarterbacks to have headaches and problems. But the matchups that they have against these teams, where Dak, Mahomes, Allen, we don't know about Brock Purdy, but that's an efficient system, Geno Smith, they're all players that can make plays while moving around. So even if they are rushed, when I say, the greatest strength versus the greatest strength, is the Eagles' greatest strength, which is their pass rush, going to get to these guys in the ways that they will get to guys like Mac Jones and Kirk Cousins and Baker Mayfield earlier in the season? They're going to obliterate those teams early in the season. But what will happen when they reach a quarterback who is on the same level as the defense?
That's the question. I mean, that took them all the way till the Super Bowl to find one last year. So we got a 4-game stretch where that's not going to happen this year. I just love this team, Bob. The other one thing is they had game script in their favor the entire year last year because they dominated the second quarter unlike anyone ever really had.
Right.
Is it likely that will happen again? I don't know. But if they do, if you give these guys a lead going into halftime, I don't really see. I know Mahomes obviously did that in Super Bowl, but I don't.
I
really
think it's
see
very
a way
likely
where
for the
this
first
doesn't
8
work
weeks
out.
of the season they do. I mean, I think New York, the Jets are going to give them problems. I think the Jets are definitely going to give them problems. Miami could give them problems, but who knows what Tua will do. So
that might be the game Tua breaks. Because they'll run right through Miami's defense. Miami's soft in the middle.
Between week 6 and week 15, you have a lot of tests that hopefully all of your players are healthy to assume those tests. And if they are,
I think what you're going to see is Philadelphia shows that the AFC East isn't as good as everyone thinks.
We'll see.
I actually think these guys are going to run the entire AFC East, and it's going to blow people's minds. And I don't think the Cowboys can. And that's why I think these guys are winning the division.
I think the Cowboys can.
Well, that being said, Eagles fans, if you're still with us at this part of the video, click subscribe if you haven't already. We love being with you here at Local Football Flavor. And next week's going to start off all the fantasy chats. Like, should Hurts be the first quarterback taking over Mahomes? Where will it go from there? And how about Swift, man? We did this whole episode. We didn't dive into Swift that much. So excited.
Yeah. Wow, that's spicy.